Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mikayla, and I am doing a master's in the history of science. So, my research is in the Manhattan Project, more specifically investigating themes of responsibility in scientific innovation. And when I say the Manhattan Project, thanks to a specific movie, the name Oppenheimer is surely the first thing that comes to mind, or even names like Cillian Murphy or even Christopher Nolan. So, for some background purposes, the Christopher Nolan actually based the movie Oppenheimer off of this biography by Kai Bird and Martin Sherman, titled American Prometheus: The Triumph and Tragedy of Robert Oppenheimer. Now, to give Nolan credit, he actually did stay very true to this biography, and I do think that the movie actually captured a lot of Oppenheimer's true character, and included a lot of facts like his love for New Mexico and his passion for his ranch in the Pecos River Valley, which actually led to the weapons and development base being built in Los Alamos. So the popularity of this movie also came with the resurgence of the biography. And with that, Oppenheimer became the forefront of the Manhattan Project and almost absorbed its narrative. So I completely understand that the Oppenheimer movie is not a historical documentary, and nor is it meant to be used as a historical primary source for the atomic bomb. And the purpose of this talk is not to pick apart its historical accuracy, although I will note there are some. For example, Oppenheimer was not introduced to Niels Bohr by his Cambridge mentor Patrick Blackett, but by Ernst Rutherford. But again, not the point. So, nonetheless, the issue with Oppenheimer and its popularity is that it contributes to this great man theory of understanding the history of science. So, the great man paradox comes from this long standing way of understanding the history of science that comes through the actions and decisions of single exceptional individuals whose innate qualities then tend to construct these new innovations and events. So, this creates, as historian Thomas Carlyle notes, a history of science that is more akin to a biography of man. And there are plenty of issues that are involved in this narrative, including the exclusion of experiences of people of color and of women. And when we apply this premise of the Great Paradox to the Manhattan Project, what we get is a very Oppenheimer-driven narrative where the Manhattan Project becomes absorbed by one man, Oppenheimer, and one place, namely Los Alamos. So, in evaluating the moral standards or the moral standings of these scientists, Oppenheimer's early optimistic hopes of the atomic bomb becoming the end of all war then gets transcribed to an entire scientific community. But what we really don't know and really don't fully understand is what these individual scientists were thinking and feeling while they were working on the Manhattan Project. So when we start to step away from the Oppenheimer narrative and really look at the scope of the project, we see that it is enormous in scale and encompasses more than just one man. For example, there are over 22 sites that were involved in the Manhattan Project that range across Britain, the United States, and Canada, and there were over 6,000 scientists and engineers involved in the project. 2,000 of them were stationed in Los Alamos, and the majority of the workforce at Los Alamos were physicists. So, what does this mean for my research? Or really, this brings me to the goal of my research, which is to paint a broader picture of the Manhattan Project with the aim of highlighting the experiences of a wider range of individuals working on the atomic bomb. So I'm starting with a group of about 20 to 25 scientists who might not have the same popularity as Oppenheimer, but who were still very much responsible for making these decisions about the construction and use of the atomic bomb. So, taking these scientists, my aim is to evaluate their role within the project, their hierarchy, their primary site assignment, how much they actually knew about the project, their age, their moral standing, did they try and do anything to stop the atomic bomb from being used. And this picture here on the top is just a spreadsheet that I've started with about 20 or so scientists that I'm beginning to use to answer these questions. So then, how am I going to do this, or what is my method? My current method is scoping through all of the available archival databases and really looking for journals, meeting minutes, and recorded oral interviews. And from those, I'm going to look at them from these scientists' point of views to really answer these questions. So, for example, I have brought one interview from Crawford Greenwald. He was an American chemical engineer stationed as one of the managers at the DuPont Company in Chicago. So this snippet here is from a 1965 interview from journalist Stephen Groff. Make sure I can.
Oh yes, they were told the full story. That is not the technical details, because there's no use. They wouldn't have understood them.
But building a weapon, atomic weapon...
Well, we were not asked to build an atomic weapon.
To build a material.
We were asked to produce the material, and there were representations from the highest source, which we demanded from President Roosevelt that this was really an essential item in the defense of the United States. And with that assurance from the President, it became a question of patriotic duty to do it. So we did. That's all there was to it.
So I know that the audio might have been a little faint for the people in the back, but what he notes at the end is he didn't really know the scope of what the project was. He didn't understand that it was an atomic bomb when he was given his assignments. He knew that he was building material for an item of defense at the highest level, and what he understood from Roosevelt was it was his patriotic duty to do so, which he admits to at the end. So there's already so much information that we're pulling from this one audio alone, from this one individual who was managing other scientists at DuPont. So we know that they were aware they were building something for national defense, but maybe not to the scope of a nuclear weapon. But we also can tell that his patriotic duty or his sense of patriotism was enough for him to say, okay, I'm not going to ask any more questions or investigate further. I'm just going to get my guys to work. So I have some other examples, but basically what I am currently doing is combing through all of these journals and oral interviews. For example, here's one quote from George Cohen, who was a Met Lab scientist, and then we have Geoffrey Chew, who is a lower-ranking physicist at Los Alamos. But what these accounts are allowing me to do is build a picture of what these communities of scientists actually knew while they were working on the Manhattan Project. And then from there, I can begin to answer questions about whether or not there were any resistance to the use of the bomb on the grounds of ethics, and if they were present, why did they fail? How much of this was due to secrecy or military involvement, or were there enough scientists there that just truly believed in the sense of patriotism enough so to see the project through on their own? So why does this matter? Why look into all of these oral interviews from these scientists? I think most generally we associate scientific innovation with growth and positive progress. However, the atomic bomb is really a showcase of a significant example where technological innovation was weaponized for destructive purposes and really going against any positive progress. So my hope is that looking at the way the scientific community and the Manhattan Project dealt with the moral qualms of the atomic bomb will help us then build a better understanding of what ethical frameworks and moral responsibility we can use for future innovations.